is in the last year since I joined this mastermind course, I joined Rollins, but I've been in Carl Island's, I've been in Richard Parker's, I've been in a number of them. And this is what I've learned about buying businesses from interviewing over 90 serial acquisition entrepreneurs. Now I've interviewed probably 73 I've released. I've got about 20 others on the cutting board, processing, but there is a common theme between all of these that are successful. So we are going to talk about that right now. All right, so here's the kind of the overall goal or overall number of areas we're going to talk about. Number one is goal setting. I have found every single one of them had a goal, and they set their goals and they wrote these goals down. So everybody needs, if you want to follow success or model success, write these goals down, start executing on them. 2, massive prospecting action. Number 3, calls with the seller, what that looks like. Number 4, the due diligence process, collecting information. Number 5, pro-conning and risk assessment to every deal. Number 6, valuation and negotiate. Number 7, financing the deal. That's a big hot topic because everybody's coming from a different place. Number 8, creating a serial acquisition system. And this is what every interview I do, I key on this, like, what got you to start this, like looking for the second one, and how did you set it up? So let's get into each one of these by itself. But first, I need to do something. I need to turn on my fan, and I want to everybody kind of disabuse themselves of this belief that there are a lot of great deals. There's no money down, no money out of pocket, or consulting for equity. I'm not saying it's impossible, and they're out there. I'm just saying it's a really kind of small pool to go after. The bigger, if I was to allocate capital, if I was Warren Buffett and said my number one job is capital allocation, and that's time allocation, I would not focus on these types of deals. They are out there and you could create them, but they take longer to cultivate and they just take more time to find and build. So let's disabuse yourself of that, the no money down, no money out of pocket, consulting for equity deal. So now we're going to get into what every single one of these entrepreneurs, I'm going to go back. So the 90 I've interviewed, one of them did a no money out of pocket deal, but it was a money losing operation. It was kind of a garbage deal. So I interviewed them. This is one of my first interviews. It's a no money out of pocket deal. So it doesn't happen, but it's a very small percentage. Goal setting. Now, this is what every entrepreneur, serial acquisition entrepreneur, they set a goal. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to acquire a company by this date. I need to work backwards. That means I need to talk to this many people. I need to get this many SIMs. I need to have this many interviews on the line. I need to be asking this questions. I also need to figure out how to be raising goals. So this is the most important goal. The step is the goal setting for everyone. I may hold on. I'm gonna close that out because it's taken in there. No, so kind of setting some expectations. If you were to go to a search fund, it's a private equity fund. Basically, they hire searchers. They will give you 2 years to find a business, and usually it's like couple $100,000 for living expenses to help you go through the process. Set your expectations here. Finding a business that you can fund, that's a good deal, that banks will fund, takes time. So set your goals appropriately and manage your expectations on that. Number 2, take massive action. What do I mean by that? I mean, Tony Robbins, if you want to get off outside the atmosphere on the planet, a rocket will use 80% of its fuel just to get out of our atmosphere, which is only 65 miles. So take massive action. And I'm talking about prospecting. I'm talking about everywhere. On-market deals, off-market deals. I would start with on-market deals. And the reason I say on-market deals is they are motivated sellers. And you have an army of bird dogs looking for you out there. They're business brokers like the IBBA.org. It's International Brokers Association. There are 30 in Arizona that are looking for businesses from me. They collect lists of companies. They keep them on their email list and ask them every 3 months to 6 months, hey, are you looking to sell? Use business brokers to sell. This is completely different than a lot of that training out there where that says, hey, don't go to business brokers. I don't believe in that. I believe you should go look at business brokers. And there are, biz buy sell, there's generational, there's Woodbridge, there's all kinds of them out there. And they are motivated to sell. Get on there, get that NDI signed, get the SIM, get them on a Zoom, start asking the questions, and find out if you can make an offer on the deal. Prospect everywhere. Again, I'm going to go back to that capital allocation. If I was Warren Buffett and was allocating capital, but let's replace that with time. I would put my energy first into looking at all of these business broker sites. Start. There's hundreds of them out there. That's the best return on your dollar. So look for everywhere. Number 3. And I know this is kind of simple, but I don't want you guys to overcomplicate it because this is what 90 or 89 of them have done. And the third step is exploratory Zoom calls with the seller. This is where you got to get to find out if you like the business, if you want to do the business. You're asking them all kinds of questions like, you want a relationship with the person that's trying to sell the business. And I'll tell you, here's a story. I interviewed a guy that bought 7 foundries, and he placed there was 50 offers on a business. The sellers took his offer, which is $1 million lower than the highest offer. And they took it because he had an exploratory call, created a relationship, and visited their site 3 times. So these calls, you're kind of in control of what's happening and the questions you want to ask, because you don't want to get all the way down to the end and not ask a question that you're concerned about or a red flag. Ask it right up front. I'll give you another story. Wednesday, I was on a call with an IT firm that was doing $2.6 million. They had 600,000 in EBITDA, and they were selling for a 4.38 multiple. Now that's very reasonable, rational for an IT firm. So we got them on the phone or a Zoom call, and there had 3 founders on there, and I had a partner with me, Carol S. Mann. So we're asking questions. I said, I do have a question, guys. The broker sent me some spreadsheets, income statement last night, and it said that Zoran had a income or there was a salary of $120,000. But you guys sent me a statement this morning where that income is out, which inflated the profit. That was a mistake by the broker, but I asked about that question. The guy got defensive. And I'm asking it, so I don't notice his body language. Carol S. does. And she said that when he was confident in his answers, he'd sit back. When he was defensive, he'd move forward. So that's a red flag. You're looking for those kind of, tips or calls. Like, what's going on there? So Carol and I talked about this afterwards and said, look, man, you can't take somebody's salary out there because he's in business development to pump up your EBITDA. So we passed on that deal. Second reason we passed on the deal is because we're asking, where are all the programmers? They're in Serbia. Holy cow. Well, Serbia is really close to Russia. And it's one of the 3 countries that did not sign sanctions against Russia. So we have no legal ability to go over there, hire an attorney or a solicitor, whatever they call them, if something goes south. We just have to move, everything shuts down, and we'd have to go to India. And we didn't want to do that. Now, it was great for those guys because they were all ex-Serbians, but they've been in country in the United States for 20 years. But it is a risk that we could not mitigate. So this is what an exploratory call does with the seller. You've got to find out if you are comfortable with the business. You're looking for the red flags. You're looking for, can you do the business? Let me give you an example on this, and I'll talk about this a little bit. But, if a business has 80% of its sales in one niche or sector or types of customer, and you're a salesperson, can you mitigate that risk? You should be able to, because there's never going to be a deal where there's just not hair on it or it doesn't look pretty. All right. Exploratory calls. Ask as many questions as you want. I have in my email system, if you go to dealflowsystem.com and you say, hey, I sign up for the email, I've got those questions, over 200 questions you can ask a seller. Get in there, dig in there, and what you're trying to do is like get him to lean forward and be defensive about it, because that's a position he wasn't prepared to answer. All right. Due diligence, financial statements. I talked a little bit about this, but this is just the 4-step. Uncomplicated. You want the financial statements. You want the income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow statement. They all work together, and you're looking for kind of red flags in there. Is the debt too much on the balance sheet? Is the accounts receivable or accounts payable? Do they look off kilter? Any one of those. If the guy's not paying the bills and accounts payable and it's pushed out, it's going to boost up profits. If accounts receivable, he's not collecting, what's the agent report on that? And it's older than 90 days, you're probably going to have to write that off because you're not going to be able to collect it. That's going to look bad in cash flow. So the next step after due diligence is, collecting the IRS tax statements, because if they're going to lie on their tax documents, it's a business you probably don't want to buy. But that's the 4th step: due diligence, collecting financial statements. Now, pro-con risk assessment. I talked about this a little bit. What are you comfortable with assuming risk? Now, back to that IT example. Now, if a couple of Serbians or Bosnians or if they're friends now, were going to buy that IT firm, that would be a risk that they would assume. If you're an accountant trying to buy a bookkeeping service, by the way, bookkeeping is a boring business. You got to have it. It's a reoccurring revenue, and it's a nice looking type of niche. But, if you're a sales guy, I talked about this before, and there's a high concentration in sales, how can you risk an assessment and mitigate that risk? This is like, can you do it? If this is not about building sandcastles in the sky, listening to the broker and say, well, if you had marketing, you could be doing this. That's another thing. Back to that IT firm we looked at, I go like, they don't have any specific or concrete marketing program in place. So it was all kind of word of mouth, and it was the 3 founders. Like, how do we replace that? Can we? And how much that would cost us? That's another risk we could not mitigate, so we passed on the deal. That's just like 1 of 3. Number 6, valuation and negotiate the price and terms of each deal. Now, a lot of these businesses you're going to buy on Biz Buy Sell or a broker site are going to have a standard valuation. Whether it's a landscaping business or, that's going to be 2 to maybe 3, depending on the size, up to 5 if it's a reoccurring business and it's over, 3 to 5 million. A window tinting business or like a bookkeeping business or CPA business. Bookkeeping CPA businesses sell for a 1x multiple. This is not complicated. There are sheets out there that'll give you a good sense of what this valuation is. Now, as far as negotiating price and terms each deal, if it's a rational, reasonable multiple, just offer it. I mean, if it's like we looked at this IT firm for 4.38, I like technology. 4.38 is reasonable. I would offer them 4 multiple because I know that if I ran the income statements and the opportunity by my the bankers, which the SBA firm, they would do it because they could do an 8.25% term loan over 10 years. The cash flow could support the debt payments. So they don't get into a lot of these 90 people I've interviewed. The valuation, is it reasonable? Like what would Warren Buffett say? I want to buy a great business at a good price. Right? He's not going to flip it around. I'm trying to negotiate and get the greatest deal possible. So am I going to throw in a low price there? And negotiation, I got to tell you, most of these deals are going to be either 50% seller's note, 50% SBA loan, and maybe some small percentage of down from the buyer. And that's it. I mean, there's not a really lot of variations in that. I don't have the really complicated, I'm going to buy and loan against the assets of the business. Now that's high capex business, but most of this stuff is an SBA loan where they're going to give you 10 down. I mean, like 10 years to pay that back. And about this, how these guys, men, women of the 90 group, how they succeed is they just make more offers. I talked to every one of them and I said, well, why did you pick an accounting firm? You don't have any accounting degree, right? Because it fit the characteristics of what I was looking for. Like it was a service-based business, it had reoccurring revenue, and it had good profit margin. They were just looking at it and go, look, can I build off of that? It's not any specific niche where you love that industry, you have to go to it. You don't have to do that. If you do find something, that's great, but you don't have to do that. Like the guy I interviewed yesterday, the 7 foundries. I mean, did you ever want to get into a high capex business like the Andrew Carnegie long time ago? Carnegie? No, it just looked like a good business. And then we started buying number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and we got an offer and we're closing on number 7. It just met the criteria of it's going to pay me $10,000 to $25,000 in SDE. It's high profit, over 50%. It's been around for 10, 15, 20 years. Seller is motivated to sell. Now it's my job to go create a relationship with the seller so he picks me over the 5 to 50 other offers out there. You just got to make more of those offers. Financing the deal. I alluded to this earlier, but 99% of these are using SBA to finance the deal because it's a great terms. It is, you can put 90% down. You can get 8.25. It just went up, and you can get 10-year. Now, every single one of these SBA lenders lends on a different criteria. Some will look for your credit score. Some will look for your experience in the industry. Some will look for a specific niche. Like Steven Spears, who I got an interview with, he does e-commerce. Now, another SBA lender just does offline, boring manufacturing businesses. You have to take this to a number of SBA lenders because the underwriting part of it may like the deal, may back out of the deal right at the altar, just may change their mind or just not want to do the deal. So you're going to have to pitch your deal to a number of SBA lenders. And I put a post out on LinkedIn not too long ago about, the top 10 banks like Live Oak Bank, the bank out of Florida that I just interviewed just a couple days ago. I've got Steven Spear, number of people out there. I got a list. I could share that with you. Now, financing the deal. So there are a couple other things people talk about. He goes, well, I don't have the 10% down. What do I do? There's really only a couple of things you can do in that case. You either start small, which is buying a business under 500,000. SBA will still do that, but you start small and grow big. Every single one of the people I talked to and I interviewed started small. Every single one. Because that's their first time ever buying a business. They haven't done it before, and they started small. And they grew it, and they said, well, now that I'm in the industry, I could see what's happening. I could start buying more. I could borrow more. Now with the SBA, you're limited to how much you can borrow in a 10-year period. It's $5 million. If you are borrowed $5 million from SBA, you can't borrow it again in that 10-year period. You're going to have to go to traditional financing. But if you borrow $2 million, or let's say $1 million, you can borrow another $2 to $3 million in that 10-year period on the next SBA loan. And here's the cool thing about the SBA loan. If you buy a company and you got great cash flow and you're making those payments, your next acquisition, you can get 100% financed with an SBA bank. There's no more 10% down. They love you. They're using that business to buy the business, and they're using that cash flow. And if you're doing a great job, they'll give you a loan to buy the next business for 100% down. So the other way to do this is partner or bring on an investor for that 10%. I had this happen to me. I was looking to buy a portfolio of courses on Udemy. The guy had sold 1 million of the courses. Yeah, 1 million. And he made a lot of money. He started selling them for $300. Then Udemy moved the price down to $15, $20. But he sold millions of dollars worth. He told me he had 5 million in the bank. He just got tired of running the business. So I put the deal together and I ran the deal I had a pitch deck, an income statement, cash flow statement, and balance sheet. I ran it by a bank and said, I was not strong enough for the personal guarantee. You need to bring somebody else in. So then the next step was I found another partner, was wealthier than I was, had, been on the planet longer, done a lot more things. I say, hey, would you like to be CEO of this company that I'm trying to buy for $2 million and 82% profit? I said, sure. So he was put on the personal guarantee. They approved the loan for $1.7 million. So there's really only two ways you can do that if you don't have that 10%. You can either start small, or you can partner or bring in an investor. That's financing the deal. And I highly recommend using SBA. By the way, if you use SBA at 8.25 or 10 years, you don't have to do seller financing that much. Like the seller usually wants to retire and he doesn't want to get in, own the business if you screw it up after 3 years. The SBA loan kind of takes care of that. You don't have to have seller financing. if you do get seller financing, which is cool, it's going to be probably in a shorter term, like 1, 2, or 3 years. And maybe the partner does want to stay around or wants the business back if you screw it up. So this is every single person out of the 90, except that one, that does their deals this way. Number 8, creating a serial acquisition system. I got to tell you, I think there's probably 20% of the 90 people I interviewed have said they intentionally set it up this way. The rest of them got in the business, bought the business, and then decided, I don't like running the business. I'm going to bring in an operations manager. I would just want to go acquire. And here's how they did it. They just built a holding company. Company A's here, company B's here, company C's here. It's not complicated to set up legally. The biggest challenge is we're all in a people business, which means, company A's got this one culture, company B's got this one culture, company C's got a different culture. You're going to have to be good at either managing the person, the general manager in A, general manager in B, and general manager in C. Or like a guy I interviewed yesterday, Reginald Zeller, what he did was hire a CEO person. And you know where he found him? On Twitter, SMB Twitter. He just said, hey, look, I'm looking for an operations manager to run the company. Somebody said, you know what? I don't like doing M&A. I just like running companies, president. So he made him president and CEO, and now he's responsible for all the hiring, firing, and everything else responsibilities coming with running these 3 companies. Reginald just goes out and looks for other businesses. He's made a list of all the foundries, the Andrew Carnegie high capex businesses, and he just cultivates them and goes, hey, if you're ever interested in selling, call me. That's what he does. It's not complicated. It's easy to say. It's harder to do because it's a people business. Now, some of the companies, CEOs I've interviewed, they will start with this company A and then just start doing tuck-ins or roll-ins or buy a company and shut it down to get the market share. There's a number of ways you can do that, but it's not complicated. But this is the key to creating a serial acquisition system. I do tell you this, that I ask everybody, is it your intention to create a company with, EBITDA over $2 million, which is attractive to private equity firms, which means once you create a company that's, 2 million EBITDA, 1 + 1 = 3, meaning, let's say Reginald bought company A and it's a multiple of 2, but if he's got company B and C and they're all 2s, now a private equity firm would say, great EBITDA, we'll give you 5 to 7 multiples. And do they want to sell? I can't answer that because a lot of the people that I've interviewed are just starting in the business. They haven't grown it to over 2 million and say, hey, we're not a buy and hold. We're build it to 2 million and flip it. A lot of people that I've interviewed are just like Warren Buffett. They buy, they tell me they want to buy and hold because the cash flowing off that really supports a great lifestyle. And or they can use that cash flow, allocate it to more acquisitions to grow it even bigger. So there's a lot of ways you could do this and not get tied into the business. All right, so that was the 8 steps that I learned from, look, I've done 3 deals myself. I bought a company, actually had to shut it down every 6 months because it was an online company and Yahoo changed their ad policy. I bought a distressed sale, let's say for an e-commerce company selling hearing aids. I ran that for 5 years. I grew it and I sold that on Empire Flippers. And then I helped a company acquire a $7 million company and I got paid pretty lucratively in stock on that. So I'm on my 4th deal. And I love doing these interviews with serial acquisition entrepreneurs because this is what I'm going to do. And the reason I want to do this is, because, again, back to what Tony Robbins says, if you want to achieve something, find someone else who's already done it. What you want to do, try to learn as much as you can from them as they can help you avoid the mistakes along the way. That's why I do this interview. Now, I got a lot of time left, and I'm going to open it up for Q&A here.
Looks like we did have a question, and I will encourage Vedran to come off mute and ask his question.
Yeah, I see Eric Nielsen. Doesn't matter if you pay the loan back in 10 years. So if you get a $5 million loan and you pay it back 100%, you can get another SBA loan in that 10 years, right? But you can get another one before that, because let's say your principal's down to $2 million. You can go back to the SBA lender and borrow $3 million. Does that help, Eric?
Yeah, I got it. That makes sense. I just didn't know if it was a one-shot $5 million in a decade, or if it was just $5 million out at one time within 10 years.
Yeah, no, gotcha. It's $5 million capped. That's the more important point right there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I got another question here are there any UK equivalents to SBA? I'm going to tell you, I don't know that answer. Does anybody else online, could they answer that question? All right. Any other questions out there? Because I just want your permission. I do, I love doing this, but to support the podcast and everything else I do and everything else I learn and working on, I do have an offer I'd like to run by you. It's coaching with me. John Stoddard, everything I've learned from doing 3 acquisitions, working on my 4th, and interviewed over 90 serial acquisition entrepreneurs. I've got a coaching system. It's 3 months. It's $2,500. Anybody attending this webinar can take $500 off by just using that code COACH500. Just go into dealflowsystem.net. So that is at dealflowsystem.net. Please, right now, ask any questions you have while I'm on here.
John, I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the first loan that SBA will give you, they want 10% down, right?
Yeah.
And then, so let's say you do a loan for, I don't know, $1 million, and so you got to put 100,000 down. You said that they will do the second loan at 0 down.
Yeah.
So could I borrow 4 million at that point? And
yeah, so this is like 5 acquisitions entrepreneurs that we're going to acquire their second business, because it's a strategic acquisition. Let's say it's a $2 million business. They want $2 million. They'll give you 100% of that $2 million.
Does it have to be a tuck-in or is
it has to be a strategic acquisition?
Okay. Well, strategic. It has to have some kind of synergy with what you already have.
That's right. Yep. Now you're in once you do that first acquisition, you look different to banks. I mean, you got cash flow, you're paying back lenders, and then they're going to be your best friend, and you're going to need them because every business is going to go through cycles. Every business is possibly going to be affected by some kind of force majeure, COVID type related incident. So you'll need a capital call, and you'll need that relationship with the bankers. But if you're doing out there on that second acquisition, like, hey, I just bought my first one for $1 million. Can I get this one for $2 million? Yeah, we'll give that to you. Now, I will say this, maybe you go back to your bank and they don't like that. Let's say, I'm not saying Live Oak does this, but let's say, oh, we don't really like that. Okay. Go to another SBA bank. You've got to be taking a number of bankers to the altar. What you really want to do is start building a relationship with a banker that will help you during those capital calls, or that second or third acquisition.
Sorry, John, to interrupt. I don't know if that is the case in the US, though in Ireland, where I'm based, when the bank reject a loan, they give the reasons why. So you can go back and fix it. So I don't know if that's it. When they make the offer, the letter of offer, they put the terms and conditions and they say, and would like to see A, B, or C, X that we haven't seen. Or they say we cannot approve this because ABC, and pretty much they give you all the path to access the loan, if you may, providing that you have the capacity or the structure, whatever they're asking when they rejected the loan. I don't know if that is the case in the US when they provide these letters, but some people is put off to say, oh, I missed it, I cannot do it anymore. They don't read the document correctly and say, okay, hold on a second, that they are telling me literally what I have to do to access the instrument or the financing that they're providing.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, I don't know if they do that in the United States, because I just I've gone through the SBA and we sent a deal and it goes, no, underwriter rejected it. Like, okay, what was the reason? Well, it just wasn't strong enough. It didn't pass through them, and that was it. So
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. And is there any other mechanism that you can check with them? Like,
our mechanism is
the
the free enterprise system is finding another SBA bank.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, John. Vedran here. So I have two questions. The first one was in the chat. I was interested to find out, where did you find this Serbian business? Because I'm from Croatia. Just
do you want it?
I don't know. Just curiosity. And I have a follow-up, which is, so in case you, let's say, wanted it, I assume you would take an SBA loan. How would that look like if Serbian?
So we weren't that far yet, because I don't know. This is the challenge I had with one another deal, that the course business from Udemy. I went through 10 SBA banks, even though it was incredibly profitable. I mean, consistent revenue, incredibly profitable. They didn't want to send money to the UK. It took me 10 SBA banks to find somebody that wanted to do it. And the reason they did it was because I found an investor that was ready to write the check. He put $7 million in a bank, and I told the bank that, and what happened was FOMO, fear of missing out. So, and they turn around and goes, oh, we'll do it.
So the deal for the Serbian company would have been something similar, or you would open
I think the owners are all legal residents of the United States, and they've been here over 20 years. So the bank account's in the United States. So it would go to a United States business. So I'm going to give you a possible yes, they'll do it, but I would run it by and see if they would do it, because there was some issues like, how do we pay, what's the financial system and how is money paid to Serbia? I didn't know that. That was too much risk for me. But you being from Croatia, you might have an answer to that, and that's not an issue. You can mitigate that risk.
Yeah, I could take the money from the bank, but I was just curious about the SBA. Yeah, probably wouldn't work that way.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So Paul's got a question. One has to use the SBA lender in the state you make the acquisition in. Is that a question? Because the answer to that is no, because I know Steven Spear does online businesses, SBA online businesses, and they're all over the United States. Somebody's resident in Alabama and buys something in California.
Hey, John, did I hear correctly that the majority of these 90 interviews, that most of them had like 50% seller financing? Is that what you said that at some point?
Yeah.
If you speak more broadly, what is standard? Is it 10? Is it 20? Is it 50? Is it over, or is it just deal by deal?
Well, it's deal by deal. And what happens is, like, say you're the serial acquirer, and they go, all of a sudden you just make a rule or mandate. And so we only do 50-50 deals, right? debt, 50% debt, 50% seller financing. Why is that? Well, the higher the seller financing you do, it's actually better tax wise for the seller because they
Right.
don't take that
That's
big
the-
fat tax crunch. It also gives more confidence to the acquirer. Go like, okay, he's putting his money where his mouth is.
Sure. Does that increase the multiples at all because of that confidence that the business is going to maintain and move forward?
Yeah, you may have to buy, the more seller financing you get, the higher the multiple, because like, okay, now you're placing more of the risk back on the seller.
Right. But that makes sense.
Yeah. It's just like, hey, there's a business for $3 million and it's SBA approved and a lot of people are ready to purchase it for, let's say, 5x multiple. But you're a great buyer and you'll do great things with it and you have a great relationship, but you go, look, we only buy businesses with 50% seller financing. Okay. I want a 5.2 or 5.3 multiple.
Right.
Is
is
that a
it-
problem? It's
is
not
it-
really.
Is it interest only for a couple years and then a balloon payment normally, or is it just?
Yeah, I've seen it 3 to 6% interest. Some are interest only. I don't know. I'm not comfortable with the balloon payment
Okay.
because that would be anytime balloon payments come around, especially in the mortgage industry or any other industry, that scares the crap out of me because you're going to owe, freaking a lot of money at some point in time. And what happens if you hit COVID?
Right.
Yeah. Another COVID. Yeah.
Hey, John,
Yeah.
have you run across anyone using a life insurance policy as a down payment for the business? Any of these buyers have used that method at all? 'Cause I know there's
Not in the 90 people I have. So where the one area that we were exploring this is, because when we were trying to buy that portfolio of courses, we didn't use life insurance as a down payment. We were just concerned about the personal guarantee, the financial proctology that we were going through and go, do we really want to expose all of our assets? We're both over 55 to this business. We didn't want to. So there was a lot of insurance policies that you could take out to mitigate that risk. But if you can borrow against that life insurance policy, they don't care. Now, I'm not going to say all of them don't care. Some of them, SBA lenders call it a straw lender, which means it's like, hey, I'm just going to do a, loan the guy $100,000 for that 10% down. Some don't care about that. Some do. That's why you got to run this by the bankers, more bankers than just one.
right. Because that reminded me, someone asked in the audience about a SBA equivalent, but I remember it was in UK. They had something called personal guarantee insurance that you could pay annually. I think.
Yeah. We didn't end up doing it. The reason is because I think it's the efficacy of the SBA loans. I mean, they rarely default. Like if you find a business it's been around for 10 years and it's doing 3 million and it's really profitable, it's been doing that up and down, maybe lumpy over 10 years. It's probably going to keep doing it for another 10 years, unless you intentionally screw it up.
Mhm.
It
Hey,
sounds like
John.
a surety bond. Sorry.
Yeah, John.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi, John. It's Peter. With SBA loans, what's the percentage of folks actually getting their house taken away if everything goes south? I mean, that is the risk on these SBA loans.
Yeah,
So,
that's a risk.
I mean, how much do you hear that happens? I mean, I don't hear much about it, but it can happen. So I know
It's
you're
rare.
SBA loans, but I think guys, SBA loans are not the way to go. And John, I know you've hooked up with Carl and some of these other guys, and they're not big SBA fans.
Yeah, I got it. Because there's a lengthy process. It takes longer. I mean, money loves momentum.
Yep.
And SBA is not a short process. It's like 90 days and there's this financial proctology through the business. And it feels like, okay, why do you need my financial statements and a credit score if the business is buying the business?
Yep.
And there's a really kind of weird feeling about that, but but it just is. But I like Bruce Marks, the guy, Lake of Florida Bank. He has over 1,200 SBA loans to businesses because of his criteria. Zero have ever had to use the personal guarantee.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good.
I've
Hey,
never,
John,
paid
you got a
me
couple
anymore.
of questions in the chat. Want to make sure those get seen too. I see one here that went to me accidentally. Is it better to have my deal team in place first, or does it even matter?
Yeah, I got to tell you, probably the only M&A coach I have not gone through is Dan Pena, and Dan Pena recommends a deal team.
Yeah, the board of directors.
Yeah, so you know, in any corporation, you start like a public corporation, they need a board of directors because they need to watch after people, make sure they don't cross the guardrails, right? That's important. Now, if there's two parts to this. If you are just waiting or taking time to create a board of directors before you get your acquisition, it's more like procrastination.
Yep.
Now, the other side of it, I've interviewed two of the guys I've interviewed are Dan Pena, the Battalion brothers out of Florida, and Thomas Lemaguire out of Canada. Dan Pena, board of directors, killing it.
Got it. Another question that came to me by accident. John, you got time for any quickie stories of successes in the first 90 days of any of your folks? Just a quick story or two.
Well, I got to tell you, I just started the coaching program and I have two coaching students on the line. And I don't know if we have any. Dave is on the line and James is on the line. So, you know, I don't know if there's, and I'll let them speak up, but you know, it's early in the game. And what I do is I say, hey, let me look at your deal flow. Let me take a look at it. Where are you stuck on that? And I think it's Dave. I go, look, Dave, that deal's still good. It's a good deal. It's, you know, it's profitable. Let's keep pushing that because a lot of these deals, like squeaky wheel gets the grease. You're ambitious about getting this deal, but you're patient, you know, ambitious patience in the case.
Cool. A couple of other chat questions. Paul and Chris are mentioning that you have to get an SBA loan from a lender in the state that you're making an acquisition in. That's an assertion. Chris asked, is that true for online businesses as well?
Yeah, no, I think I answered this. I mean, like for instance, Steven Spear, e-commerce lending, he'll help you buy an e-commerce business in any other state. You can be in any state you want.
All right, cool.
Like, here's what I'm telling you about the SBA and a lender, right? The SBA is just saying, hey, the 75%, I'm going to back it. I'm going to guarantee it. But that doesn't mean you just go to one SBA lender. Like, you got to ask a lot of people to the date here to get to the mill altar to find somebody that's going to match what you're trying to do.
Cool. Another question. Were there any first-time buyers in the group that you interviewed on your podcast?
Yeah, there was a couple. One guy out of Colorado bought a landscaping business. He was a first-time buyer, but he was self-funded, what they call, and he got an SBA loan. And he hasn't, from what I understand, I haven't seen any news from him that he's decided to move to the second acquisition. And I can kind of tell you why is. He told me this in the call. It's like, I got into it and I made some changes, which I probably shouldn't have. And what I learned from some of the guys that have purchased over 10 and one was 33, he goes, don't change anything in the first 100 days, nothing. And if it's going great, don't change a damn thing in the first 12 months.
You're referring to the business itself.
Yeah, I'm
Don't
talking about the
change
business. Yeah.
Yeah. How did he fund it? How did he fund his down payment?
Yeah, I think he saved some money on that, or he did have some money to put in.
John, I got to jump in. That is completely counter to so much of what we've heard around the first 90 days, getting clear on how to drive revenue by looking for the one or two key changes that one can leverage in the business. So what are they really saying when they say change nothing in the first 90 days or 12 months?
Well,
really...
I think everybody's told me after a while, like except the guy in the landscaping who's bought one business, he started making personnel changes, immediately on, and it caused a problem. It was a definitely dip in sales because that person was responsible for a lot of the business. So everybody else it's the criteria what you're looking for. If you bought a business that's 5 years or 10 years older and it could run without you, you're not going to get in there and change anything. It's the same thing as Warren Buffett buys a business. Like, look, there's a person in there doing a great job. I don't want you to call me unless there's a problem.
Thanks for that. Great clarification.
Yeah, but he's buying very good businesses, though.
Yeah, he's buying very good business. But your goal is to buy good businesses.
But these landscaping companies aren't. They need help. That's why that guy probably bought it.
Yeah. And I will agree with that. There's some landscaping businesses, like if you get your platform business and you go find this landscaping business that's not making money, it's a tuck-in or a shutdown. You just take over the equipment that you could buy just for the value of the assets or the customer list.
Absolutely.
Hey, John, I had a question about when approaching investors. How do you determine like your enterprise value, and like how do you structure a deal for them? Like if somebody's giving you $1 million, what kind of structure would you give them for like dividend payments and what they get in return?
Yeah, well, it's going to be preferred shares, right? And you're going to still own the business, but they're going to get preferred shares and some kind of dividend. What that looks like is going to be, if you're going to go to a person that has $1 million to write a check, they're going to have a lot of say over the terms.
Okay.
But you are going to go like, hey, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you, preferred terms, a preferred stock, and this is what the dividend looks like, and et cetera. But
so in terms of determining your enterprise value, then do you use like a discounted cash flow method to then determine what their equity is worth? Like, how do you determine what percentage they get?
Well, there are going to be, if you take a deal to somebody and that can write $1 million check, they're going to ask for a lot of your company. Because they haven't, that's not the first time around the block. Right? It's almost like if they can write a check for $1 million, it may depend on who that person is. Like, do they want a big percentage of the business? So if I give them a big percentage of the business, what do they bring into the table aside from money?
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're not bringing anything that could add value, like a board of directors or bring in a whole bunch of new clients, and it's just money, that should be debt.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I guess I asked because it was kind of specific to something that I have. I have a deal here going, and I have a dentist who's kind of willing to write $1 million check. He's not obviously very sophisticated, so he kind of left it up to me saying, hey, like what kind of dividend payments would I get? What kind of ownership would I own afterwards? And I was just trying to figure out if there's a typical way you calculate, somebody's equity contribution and what they would then own afterwards.
Yeah, that's actually pretty minimal, especially if he's just bringing money.
I thought that anybody that had a 20% equity in the company, like your investors, were required to guarantee the entire loan if you got an SBA loan.
Yeah, anything 20% or more, 19% below, 20% or more has to sign a personal guarantee.
So are investors willing to do that? If they, if somebody's willing to kick in $1 million, are they willing to guarantee that loan?
That's a great question, man.
I will speak to my deal specifically. I'm in Canada, so I'm not going through the SBA, but I was able to find a bank that doesn't require personal guarantees.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, And that's what I'm looking at. I'm thinking maybe I should go to, non-SBA loan, but I was just wondering about SBA loans. If you have a deal where you're getting an SBA loan, wouldn't you need multiple investors and all of them would want less than 20% on that of equity?
Yeah, there's two ways to kind of go with that. You can get a whole bunch of people together and write, a bunch of checks. It's kind of spreads the risk out.
Right.
Or this guy writing a check for $1 million, it's money in the hand. If you got somebody that's willing to write a check for money, you take it, right? If it's the right deals. And if you're creating that deal, run it by you, like make it a fair deal for him.
Yeah.
Like, what is he making money on if he puts it in the stock market? What's the alternative? Where is he going to put it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because right now I think he does have it in stocks and he said he'd be pulling it from there. So I think
Yeah.
matching those kind of returns or
that's all. Yeah. Like you have to beat the market in some cases, like an index fund. What's an index fund doing? Right. Can you offer him better terms than an index fund?
Well, I know a guy that sold his business 3 years ago. He's a friend of mine, and he put all of his money that he got from selling his business into stocks, but he's only interested in dividends. So he's only getting like 5 or 6%.
Yeah, but those stocks are liquid and there's value in that.
Yeah.
Good point.
Hey, John, I know we're time's up, but quick question on the financials. What's standard? Like if say a business has been around for 20 years, are you getting, all 3 financial statements across those 20 years, or do they typically just give you the last 5 or?
It's the last 5.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really care, what it did 10 years ago because time is so different and you can't really tell what's happening. You want to look at what happened the last 5 years, COVID, 2021, like that's thrown out, right? Whatever that was. And then you look back and go, okay, is there it's the trends you're looking for. Hey, what was their accounts receivable? Where was their balance sheet? Where was accounts payable? What was the revenue look like? What was the profit margin? And you're looking for those ratios. Were there any big dips or jumps aside from COVID?
Sure.
And then you like, can you determine if that is a boat that can run without you if you want to go to the Barbados for 3 months?
Mm-hmm. And last question for me, did I hear you right that Bruce and perhaps others can structure an SBA deal that does not require a PG?
No.
Oh, okay.
There's no way around that. Any
That's what I
SBA
thought,
is
but
PG.
I thought I heard you say Bruce does that or something.
No. That's just no way around that PG with the SBA.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah. What like some of the conversations my partner and I had when we were working on this business was like, how do we mitigate that risk? Like we can get insurance that would cover that just in case something did go south, or we could put it in trust where we don't own the assets, where it's a entanglement for them to try to go after it if it's in a trust. Now that's kind of what we settled on, but then we realized, well, this SBA lender has like a 0 default rate because of when it goes to underwriting, they put their stamp of approval, like probably business is not going to fail.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, John, as we wrap up, can we get one more question in about the mechanics? Is there a way to jump on your calendar for a quick 10-minute call if someone's interested in making sure that this is a fit for them, or do you have some other way you want people to reach out?
Yeah. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I mean, I think I'm most active on LinkedIn.
Can you drop your LinkedIn feed
hold
while
on.
I make sure while we're wrapping up here that we don't miss any other questions that were in the chat. I don't know if you're seeing all the loving that you're getting with people thanking you, but looks like this landed well on folks. And Henry had one question, but I think that might be something we might want to save for the next time since we are running over. I'm going to.
Oh yeah. promised I only take an hour here, guys. So
Yeah. So let's wrap that up.
Yeah.
Um,
John, I got a lead for Fran. If Fran's still on, he's from the UK. I have an online agency that's doing 8 million pounds and 3.3 million pounds. I don't know if Fran's interested. I mean, I have no interest in it, but if Fran or anybody from the UK is interested, I can send the info and you can work with the broker on it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, good networking. Yeah,
Yeah.
feel free to work on each other. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Yeah.
Nicely done. Thanks all.
All right.
Appreciate it, John.
All right. Cheers. Bye.